I found out that there's a chance that my daughter isn't mine. I, 43 male, feel like my world is crashing. My wife, 41 female, and I have two kids, 15 male and 12 female. I love my kids and love being a dad. I have stuff in common with both of my kids, but my daughter is like my little best friend. We get along so well and have so much in common, and our personalities just mesh so well together. Look-wise, my son looks like both myself and my wife, but favors me, while my daughter looks just like my wife. Seeing childhood pictures of my wife, she and my daughter could be twins. So last night, my wife and I were grocery shopping when all of a sudden my wife goes pale white and starts shaking a bit. I was freaked out. After 20 or so minutes, she calmed down, but after she wouldn't talk to me or even look at me. Finally, at the car, I asked what was going on. She confessed that there was a chance our daughter wasn't biologically mine. Right around the time she would have gotten pregnant with our daughter, she had gone on a work trip. Well, on her last night there, she saw this guy she went to high school with, and they were talking and drinking, and one thing led to another, and they ended up having a drunk hookup. And just the timing of everything. There is a chance that the daughter I have been raising for 12 years isn't mine biologically. That guy she ended up seeing in the store, and that's why she acted the way she did. I am getting a paternity test ASAP, and if I'm being honest, I haven't been able to look at my daughter since finding this out. My wife and I haven't talked really since, and I just let her know I'm getting a paternity test, and I'm just in shock, honestly. Update. We got a paternity test done on both kids ASAP. I explained to both kids not only why this needed to get done, but also that this doesn't change my relationship with them because I raised them and love them. We got the results, and let me tell you, they were not what I had expected. My daughter, who I initially thought had the chance of not being mine, was my biological kid. Instead, I found out my son wasn't my son. I questioned my soon-to-be ex-wife. Turns out she had another affair with my brother for a short period. I was in shock to say the least. She tried saying she only cheated once before she became pregnant with my daughter. Now I'm finding out that biologically my son is my nephew. Whoa. Since then, I made my ex-wife move out. My son decided to stay with his mom and hasn't talked to me, which I understand is confusing for all of us, and he's a 15-year-old boy. But I have texted him off and on, just letting him know I love him, and in my eyes, he'll always be my son because I raised him. My daughter is staying with me still. We are both in therapy after this whole situation. I've been trying to contact my ex-wife to get our son in there, but she hasn't returned any of my calls or respond to my text. Oh my god! What? Ew! What a turn of events, but like your brother? I'd rather it be a stranger. Why stay within the family? Yuck. Am I wrong for kicking my mom out of my dad's old house after finding out what she's been telling my wife? I, 33 male, am beyond angry about this. Some of my siblings are telling me it was an overreaction while also mad at what she did. I'd really like some thoughts about this because the house seems divided. My wife Kara and I were friends for 3 years. She was in a very toxic and abusive relationship for 3 years until she had begged us, me and our closest friends, to help her get out. It was difficult, but we made it possible. We all pitched in for her to stay as far as possible while she got a restraining order and all of that jazz. We each took turns going to visit, and then she found out she was pregnant, so I helped out more. Her ex passed from an overdose when my stepson, 7 male, was 4 months old, so since then, we all became sort of like uncles and aunts to him. Around that time, I knew I developed feelings for her, but we never ever did anything because she had her son and personal issues to process. It didn't feel right at the time. But yes, we did start a relationship 3 years later. She's the one who first admitted she's in love with me, so things went from there. We just got married. She's 5 months pregnant with our second child. I will say that yeah, my mom had issues at the start of our relationship because she believed Kara was faking what happened to her just to make me feel sorry for her and take care of them. We went through a period of not talking until she apologized, so we mended things somewhat. My mom came to stay at our house, which was my dad's house, until he decided to give ownership to me when they moved. He passed away 10 months ago, and with the economy, my mom couldn't stay where they were living before. We are still trying to work out where she can live long term. I heard my mom get into an argument with my wife because she was trying to redecorate the nursery against Kara's wishes. All I heard was my mom telling her that she's not the lady of the house just because her fake victim sob story worked on me. She looked flustered when I demanded her to tell me what that meant, and basically she held on to the same belief, but she was willing to put up with my choices on who I marry so she doesn't lose me. Everything she had to say infuriated me. And then seeing how upset Kara was by everything, I called my brother to come pick my mom up because she can't stay here right now. My mom wouldn't stop crying not to do this to her just for being honest. She's still at my brother's, but they keep trying to talk to me to let her come back because this was my dad's house, and of course she wants to feel closer to him. But after asking Kara if this is the first time she said anything, she revealed my mom has told her numerous times what she thinks of her and kept it from me because she knew it would hurt our relationship. For that reason, I haven't let my mom come back. It's hard because I know what this house means to her and that she's still sad about my dad, but also can't forgive her for upsetting my wife. So, am I the asshole? Your mom got some internalized misogyny in her. Okay, like, why is she so adamant that this didn't happen to her? You were literally there helping, you witnessed it. What's there to deny? And good for OP. I love seeing men stand up, right? I know mom and wife, it's like a very touchy subject. They can both be wrong, but like, this is a clear indicator that your wife is a victim and your mom is just being really mean, and good for you for standing up for your wife. Love to see it.
Am I in the wrong for agreeing to split the bill on a double date, which ended in my best friend being dumped? I, 22 female, am really unsure here. My best friend and roommate, 22 female Amy, had been seeing this guy for 2 months. She really likes him, and it seemed to be going super well. Last night, she asked if I'd go along with a blind double date, her and the guy she's dating, and one of his friends who's single and looking. I wasn't keen on it at first, but she insisted, so I agreed. We got to the restaurant, just a nice place in our area, and things seemed to be going fine. The friend she was setting me up with was cool, but I really am not looking for anything right now, and I didn't feel any kind of spark. We get to the end of the dinner date and the bill comes. Amy chimes in and says, "Don't worry, our men got this." To which I say back, no, I don't mind. We'd had 2 cocktails each, all 4 of us, and it wasn't a crazy expensive place, but not cheap. A bit of back and forth happened. Amy kept insisting it's always a gentleman who pays. So I said something like, "You do you, I'm happy to split." The guys were saying that they would cover, but both seemed uncomfortable. They paid, then we all left. Amy and her boyfriend went back to his. I said goodnight to his friend and went home alone. Later, Amy texted saying that her man is now contemplating the relationship because he doesn't want someone who always insists that the men pay. She told me I ruined it by offering to split and should have just sided with her and not made things worse. She's now saying that he needs time and might not want to continue the relationship with her. So, am I in the wrong for this? Am I in the wrong for throwing away my husband's Father's Day gifts after what he did on Mother's Day? My husband and I have 2 kids, 6-year-old boy and 8-month-old girl. He told me for 2 weeks leading up to Mother's Day that he had an entire weekend planned for me. This is not normal, but there's been years in the past where I did complain and feel hurt because he didn't really do much. But I always went all out for him on Father's Day and I just felt unappreciated. So I'm thinking that he finally understood where I was coming from and was going to make it special for me this year. I quite literally only asked for a massage and he really said that he couldn't give me a massage because it wasn't enough. At this point, I'm truly thinking that this man went all out. Anyway, Friday rolls around and a bunch of people start showing up. He invited a good 10 to 15 people over. I think I knew 2 people. He called it the Mother's Day bonfire. We had a fire all right, but I was the only one who chased the kids around all evening. My 6-year-old while holding the baby and some other person's 2 kids because they weren't watching them. And quite literally, no one spoke to me. I wasn't acknowledged until the very end of the evening, and that was by my husband's buddy who told me that he was stealing my husband to go out 4-wheeling. It's like 11 p.m. at this point and everyone, except me, was drinking. I said my husband wasn't going anywhere. I even said this to my husband. "You're drinking, you're not going anywhere." He took that as, "Oh, I need to find a DD and then I can go." So he asked a neighbor to drive him around and took off with everyone. I'm extremely hurt at this point because this was my promised weekend and I got stuck with other people's kids, wasn't spoken to at all, had a mess to clean up, and now my husband's taking off. I explained how hurt I am the next morning. He says that he gets it and apologizes and says that he had too much to drink and wasn't really thinking clearly. Okay, I get it. It's whatever. We didn't do anything Saturday because he spent half of the day sleeping off a hangover. Well, Sunday rolls around and his boss calls him at 6 a.m. and asks him to come into work because they are short-staffed, and he said yes. So I expressed hurt and said, "But it's Mother's Day." And he says, "I know, I'm sorry, I just don't want to pass up the opportunity for more hours," which I get that too, so whatever. He gets home at 5 p.m. and starts getting the kids dressed and ushers toward the door, so I'm thinking we're finally going to go celebrate. We end up going on a walk. I love walking, but 5 minutes in and he's complaining and has to turn around because of the black flies. They weren't even bad. When we get back home, he lays on the couch and says, "Oh, your gift is in the truck." So I go down and it's a $5 storage container for sugar and flour. I do like stuff like this, but I'm so hurt at this point. I asked him if I could at least get a massage and he says, "I'm sorry, babe, I'm just so tired," and falls asleep around 8 p.m. when he usually doesn't even go to bed until midnight or 1 in the morning. I just sat there crying. I took the 3 gifts that I had already bought him for Father's Day and chucked them in the trash can. Personalized items that cost me more than I want to admit, but I don't even care anymore. He found them in the garbage this morning and asked me what they were doing there and why they were in the trash covered in the food. And I told him that they were Father's Day gifts and left it at that. He's now saying that he tried to make my weekend special and that he's hurt by me throwing away the gifts to retaliate against him for it not turning out the way that he wanted it to.
Story time about how my best friend and boyfriend slept with each other. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 10th grade. So this whole thing started 2 years ago whenever my crush asked me on a date, and then blah blah blah, we became official. And I decided to introduce him to my best friend Vivian. And we're gonna call my boyfriend Louise. So one day we're all in my room watching a movie, and I went to go and grab some snacks, but I left the door open because I wanted to see what was happening in the movie. And while I'm in the kitchen, I see Louise staring at Vivian. I was low-key weirded out, because why are you doing that? Anyway, so then I went into the room and I felt this weird tension between them. So I stopped inviting my best friend to come over whenever we would hang out. And she got super mad at me for this. And Vivi and I would always pull pranks on each other. So the one day I call up her boyfriend John and I'm like, oh, we should say that we like each other. So we did, and she didn't care. Which maybe she just didn't think the prank was funny, but it was sus. So the next day I stop over at Vivian's house and she doesn't answer. For part 2.